Introductory again from the top, if you would, Brother Ed, kind of introduce yourself. Tell our members a little bit about you and what you do.
All right. Name is Eddie Weatherington. Currently, I'm the Senior Associate Commissioner for Governance and Compliance at the CIAA, Central Intercollegiate Athletic Association. I've been there about 12 years now. Started in 2000, the end of 2012, and right now we're in spring championships. But the CIAA is it keeps you busy. We've handled the governance, the compliance, some of the licensing, brand enforcement issues. Also work with our games officials for all of them. Just had a CIAA football mini camp for officiating just this past weekend. So now we're looking at spring championships and spring board meetings, and always never a dull day at the CIAA.
Never a dull day. And just to get you up to speed so that we can kind of pick up where we left off earlier, we had the opportunity to talk about, this being going into the second quarter of the year, some things that we can focus on. You've heard quite a few shows where we had guests on sharing their life experiences, their opinions, their values, and pointing out highlights of their lives and some of their low points so that you can hopefully lock into and see that, what we all have a similar path of challenge in life that we go through. And sometimes we just need to realize we're not the only one that are experiencing what we're going through right now. It's been done before. And if we just stay positive and focus on moving ahead and be mindful, we talked about the associates in our life, being like-minded and having those positive people in our lives is much better than the negative ones. Got to let the negative ones go, right?
Yeah.
Got to let them go. And then we talked about mental wellness. We have to protect our peace. We have to be at peace. We can't be in chaos all the time. Those points you need to really put those close to your heart, and prayer discipline, staying grounded in your prayer and your communication with God. Let him know what you're feeling. He knows, but just say it outwards, speak it out so that he can feel it. And that's so important. And then intentional relationships that are positive. Those points we discussed in pretty good detail that is so important in moving forward in life. Now, you had the opportunity still to work with young people from time to time and some seniors, and you know what it's like. You probably see it coming the way some people handle things, right? On the job, you're like, they're not gonna make it long. If he
This
don't
is
get
true.
his act together, he gonna be out of here, right?
This is true.
So it's true for young people and it's true for seniors, and if we keep that in mind, that it's not as bad as we make it out to be. No
So
matter, because I mean, if you wake up and get up, you can change it, right?
that's it.
So if so, we kind of the other point that we want to get into, we were talking about being stagnant and not staying in the same place. Negative mindsets, and that people have heard that all their lives, but sometimes folks don't believe it, even though you heard it all your life. You know what I'm saying? But you got to
Mhm.
do it. You got to find a way to get yourself out of that situation in order to move forward. And Brother Ed here mentioned that passionately, and he shared an amazing story that we probably can't cover in terms of his travel and how he became an AMEer. And
Mhm.
it's amazing. So maybe we'll get to touch up again when we have him back on the show on those points. Um, and then the next thing that you mentioned when we were talking earlier was listening to that inner spirit.
Mhm.
I think all of us could stand to practice that a little bit more. It's so easy not to hear it. It's so easy to overlook it. And sometimes we find something told me and I didn't listen.
Mhm.
I had that feeling, but I didn't do it. I wish I had. And in the time that we're in right now, we got to listen a little bit better to that inner spirit because
Mhm.
it can save us. It can save your life. It can save someone else's life. It can make a difference in, getting a promotion or not. We have got to learn to listen. And what would you say be the best way or a way we could practice on doing that, listening to that inner spirit, that guide that's talking to
I'd say the practice is to never get ahead of yourself. Never think that you know. Always think that you're always being helped, whether you're listening or not. You're always being helped. God is always there. Whether you like what you're hearing, whether you like what you're feeling, you're feeling something from God.
you.
Now, if you're fighting against it, that's going to be that's going to be the road that you have to try to sow. But you have to be quiet, sit down, and listen. I always tell people, if I'm talking to somebody and you start talking, I say, "Well, you're not listening." You can't listen while you're talking.
That's right.
The things are interconnected. You can't hear while you're putting something out. It doesn't work that way. And the same thing with God. When God is talking to you, if you don't shut up and listen, then you're going to miss it.
Mm-hmm.
And he'll say it again, but
Yeah.
until you stop and be quiet and listen and act accordingly, you're going to keep making the same mistakes. You're going to keep going around in the same circles. So my best thing is always, whenever, I don't have a problem with making mistakes or messing things up,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm not going to do it again.
Right.
If it doesn't work, if it's not working, and if that's not just about you, if it's not working for those around you, sit back and listen. Say a prayer, talk to God, do whatever you have to do to get into yourself and listen to what God is telling you to do to make it better, even if it's not for you, but for those around you. You got to want to be better than what you are every
Mhm.
day. You're never going to get to be your best. You're going to try to be your best, which means you try to get better every single day. And you can't do that without listening to God.
That's powerful. What do you say, Pastor?
Well, he's absolutely right. The scripture says, "Be still
Mm-hmm.
and know that I'm God." And I always tell people, if two people are talking at the same time, that's not a conversation. That's a choir.
Mm-hmm.
Because if two people are talking at the same time, one's not listening and one can't listen because one has his mind on saying something and the other one has his mind on saying something. And how can both of you say something and both of you hear what's being said?
Mm-hmm. That is so true. That is so true. I got a question for both of you guys because we were just talking about, staying focused, being positive. When things aren't going right, don't give up. Just keep doing it. But does there come a point in time when we need a little insight and we need to release some things in our life? We need to understand that this is not the best for me, even though we love it, we appreciate it. How do people determine when to let go, when to walk away? What would you say to that question and advice for someone? Because sometimes people are doing things they don't know. Maybe it's not the right time. Maybe this is not you. And then we all have God-given talents.
Mhm.
He has blessed us all with a gift to do something. And then I just think in 2025, we got to connect with those gifts and find out what they are if we don't know. And once we do know, maybe give that a little attention because if it's, being around, for example, those relationships that aren't positive, you might have to let some friends go. What do you think?
I think it's not just friends. It's events. It's things that don't fit.
Don't
If
fit,
you
yeah.
don't have time, I mean, it's one thing to not have time to uh, time because you have a busy work schedule.
Mhm.
But if you don't have time because that doesn't align with being out, whether it's going to the club or hanging out or just having fun, at some point there's got to be time that you're actually doing something that makes something better for somebody. And if you don't have time for that,
Mhm.
then you got to look at, is it because I'm hanging with people that don't have time with it,
Mhm.
or am I just sitting around by myself not doing anything? Either way, you got to step back and say, I've got to get up, I got to change paths.
Mhm.
If you can do it on your own, that's fine. I found that I needed to take it back to church I needed to say that let the pastor know. I've been telling myself for years
Mm-hmm.
that I want to be more active, but I never did it. So I said, well, let me put what I'm saying I want to do out. And I went straight to the top man. I didn't go to just another parishioner. I went to the pastor and told him I want to help. And he waited, he watched, he observed, and about a year later, he asked me. He put me on on the steward board, and put me to work.
Mm-hmm.
And that changed the people I was around, what I got out of church, what I took to church,
Mm-hmm.
how I dealt with the days that I missed church, what I did on those days that I did have time. I mean, CIAA, collegiate sports, any kind of athletics, that's a busy schedule.
Mm-hmm.
But it's easy to want to say, when I got a minute, I'm just going to sit here. No, now when I got a minute, I got something else to go do.
Mm-hmm.
And it's for the better. And that's why I said I needed to change.
Right.
And so that's why but you got to take that change. If you think, if it's the people, if the folks that you're surrounding yourself, the events that you're going to aren't giving you any fulfillment, just make a change.
Right.
You don't have to sit around and make sure to rail against them and tell them this is wrong. Y'all not doing anything. Just you step back and make a change.
Right.
And then when you come back, you'll bring something new to that table. And you might bring some of them.
Yeah.
But you got to step back yourself and see what's better.
What do you say, Pastor?
Well, there's several things to say. One, your friends are watching you because you have friends that look up to you, and they're watching to see how you're going to react, what you're going to do. And Brother Wetherington said, the first thing you got to do is cut the negative folks out.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to look at the folks that are in your inner circle. And you've got to ask yourself, what are they bringing to the table? Because you have people around you that don't bring nothing to the table. As a matter of fact, they mess up the table. And as a result of them messing up the table, not only are they messing up the table, they're messing up your life.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's some things that you should be doing that you can't do because of the people you got at the table with you.
That's right.
And then, secondly, you got to ask yourself, what is it that God would have me to do?
Mm-hmm.
Where is he trying to take me to? You know, a lot of times I always hear people say, well, God's not trying to do nothing with me. No, it's not. God's not trying to do nothing with you. You're not trying to do nothing with yourself. And because you're not trying to do nothing with yourself, God can't do nothing with you. Remember, the scripture says, my sheep know my voice.
Mm-hmm.
You heard him say that he listened to that inner voice. That's the voice of God. Well, if you know his voice and he says to you, move away,
Mm-hmm.
you got to make a decision.
That's right.
And so the people you keep around you, sometimes they're your worst enemy and they keep you from doing the things that you need to do. And you have to decide yourself, is this good for me or is it not the best for me? Because you got to remember one thing, God wants you to have his best. That's why he sent Jesus. He sent his best. And in order for you to hook up with the best, you've got to be hearing what the best is saying to you for you.
Yeah, that's good stuff. And listening to you both address that question, it made me think about that question, what would Jesus do?
Mhm.
And, if Jesus wouldn't do it, why would you? Why are you doing it? So I think we need to ask that question, especially young people or anyone, that's questioning, what your place is in life and how you align with God. If he wouldn't do it, why would you do it?
That's right. When I got my first job in the CIAA, I came from Division I back to the CIAA.
Mm-hmm.
I was in Ohio, and all my family was in North Carolina. You're talking about by car, that was a 13-hour drive. And so when I came home, I had an interview with Dick Crum at the University of North Carolina. When I interviewed with him, it didn't feel like a fit.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of my friends, who is now deceased, he said, Larry, why you up at Chapel Hill. You might as well go on over to Central and interview. They got a track coaching job open. And I told him, I said, Chip, I don't have an interview schedule. He said, what is it gonna hurt you? You're already in town. And at first I wasn't gonna go, but positive people.
Mhm.
It resonated.
Yeah.
I drove on to Durham, got out my car, and I'm walking into McDougal Gym. Henry Lattimore, who was the athletic director and the football coach, is on his way out. And by God's grace, he stopped me. Can I help you, young man? You looking for somebody? I said, yes, sir. I'm looking for the athletic director. Do you have an appointment? No, sir. I was just hoping I could get 5 or 10 minutes of his time. And he said, well, you look like you want something. You got something on your mind. Come on in. I'll give you 10 minutes. After the 10 minutes was up, I got up. He said, where you going? I said, you told me you'd give me 10 minutes. He said, I like what I'm hearing. Now, when I left the room, he said, this job is yours.
Awesome.
Now you got to remember, it was only the urging of a friend who God used as a vehicle
Mhm.
to get me to go. Positive people around me. I stayed at North Carolina Central for 4 years as assistant football coach and head track coach under the tutelage of Dr. Leroy Walker, the
Mhm.
1976 Olympic track coach. I learned a whole lot of stuff only because a friend allowed God to use him to send me to Durham.
That's powerful.
That is.
Listen to that inner
That
voice,
is.
right? Listen to
It
that
usually
positive
won't.
friend.
It doesn't steer you wrong. You just got to listen.
Let's talk about walking in God's authority. Let's talk about that for a minute. You know, what does that mean, breaking generational cycle? When you hear that question, what does that mean to you?
For me, I think it means that you break a cycle, but what it is, walking in God's path is refusing and not walking or working or existing in fear.
Mm-hmm.
And the fear is not just the fear of being afraid something is going to hurt. The fear of not being popular. The fear of not getting all that this group or this organization or this supervisor can give you. But you walk in God's path and know that what you will get is a greater reward.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times it's hard not to, and especially in these days, not working in fear.
Mm-hmm.
If you hear what's going on, if you wake up in the day, unless you can cut your ears off, you hear something that makes you
right.
want to think, my job's in jeopardy, my
Mhm.
this is in jeopardy, my bank account is in jeopardy. You can't work like that. You can't work thinking about what bad is going to happen. You got to keep God's plan and his ear and his voice in your head, in your ear, and you got to walk in that path.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what it means to me. It means not working in fear
That's right.
and not coming from a place of fear. But
And listening to you talk about that and listening to you talk about your life story, that is the epistle of not walking in fear. Because you said your family broke up, things were dysfunctional. But look at where you are now.
Mhm.
That's walking in authority.
and I will try to go. But we didn't go to. I skipped over it. When my wife became a coach,
Mm-hmm.
we had a long talk. At the time, it didn't even pay like a full-time job. But she asked me, I don't know what this is gonna be like. I said, listen, I will say we were only been married a little under 3 years. I said, are you serious about coaching? She said yes a couple of times. I said, no, I mean, are you serious? Are you trying to be a head coach? She said yes. I said, as long as you can convince me, and I believe you are continuing to work, not just a job, if you are serious about becoming a head coach in this, becoming a black female head coach in Division I college athletics, I'll follow you. Don't matter. I know you're supposed to follow me. I'm the man in this relationship. But if this is what you really want, she said, but what do you do? I said, don't worry about me. I can get a job wherever we go. And that is how my resume is 3 or 4 pages long.
Okay.
And I don't mean working, not that there's wrong with work bagging groceries, but I mean, I have been able to move with her when she moved. Now, there's been times when we spent 8 months, a year and a half apart commuting, but I've always been able to go and garner a career track professional job within or without my college degree. Whether it's criminal justice, I've had counseling jobs, I've run group homes here in Durham, well, over in Durham. Got into collegiate sports in that after having law enforcement background, started doing investigations for the NCAA. But that was, to me, the breaking the mold. Not worrying about what it looks like. You know, man, I ain't my wife. I ain't following my wife. Well, if she wasn't good enough to follow, I probably wouldn't let her have my name.
Right.
So I'll do that. But she was serious and I was serious. And that's what we've done. And she's been to 5, 6, 7 schools. I've been here, there. This is the second time. When the CIAA moved to Charlotte, this was my second stint living in North Carolina. We lived in, when she worked at Duke, we lived in North Carolina. We lived in Durham from 1996 to 1999. And the journey has been, like I said, there's been schools, it's been in the South, it's been in the Midwest, it's been on the East Coast, it's been out further out west, been everywhere. But it took some faith. Because there was a couple of times I had to give up a nice job. I was like, ooh, had to think about it, but I just shut up and listen. Yeah, okay, got a plan for the next one.
Wow. And the notes that I have here, it's just like, I don't know how you're doing it, but you're just going from point A to B to C, which brings me to what you just spoke to, which is claiming territory spiritually. You weren't worried about it. You just like, I'm going to make it. I can do this. I can do that. I will make it happen. You claimed it and you did it. And people need to understand that right now we need to claim our territory spiritually. We need to choose better over worse. We need to choose, that I don't know how, but I am going to make it and stick to it. And we, steadfast in prayer and, get in the church somewhere, whether it's online or in the body of Christ, somewhere, get into a God grounded church and practice your faith.
That conversation reminds me of the scripture that says the steps of a righteous man are ordered. Sometimes we don't see the order, but it's ordered, which means that God already knows where you're going. It's just a matter of us getting there. But you got to hear him in order to get there.
That's right. You got to hear him.
If you look at Psalm 37, David declares, I've been young and now I'm old. I've never seen the righteous forsaken, nor his seed begging bread. And that's what Eddie's talking about. Not being forsaken, nor having to beg bread, because he's righteous.
And let's move right along. That point was well made, and I hope people take that to heart because it's really serious business in terms of the times that we live in. You got to operate from that place because we truly don't know what tomorrow's going to bring anyway. Right now, we're facing with some serious unknowns where, again, we don't know. And we have to be in that space to be able to weather this storm that's coming. Because there's probably going to be some serious challenges that we never thought about. And togetherness and, being in the church community, God community is needed. We need to have alliance. We need to have relationships with people who think like God's children think. Somebody that we don't have to worry about, their moral compass because it's embedded in them. That's
Mhm.
probably not to say that it can happen, but the odds are a little bit lower. Would
Right.
you agree?
I would. I would.
And then if we gonna move in some crazy times, I'm gonna roll with you rather than crazy over here. You
Exactly.
see what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So that's so important. And then our emotions, we gotta get that in check too. If you need some help, there's counselors out there. There's some people
Mhm.
that can help you, whether there's pastors that you can talk to, but we gotta get our emotional health together as a whole and be the best that we can be. And would you agree? Have you seen people in your space who don't have that in check? They fly off the handle. I mean, everything is a problem. Um, they give up.
Mhm.
They
Yeah,
let
and
their
they get
emotions
stuck.
get the
Yeah,
best of them.
yeah.
Get stuck.
It's like even when it's not everything is a problem. You think it is,
Yeah.
but when you talk to them, you figure out, oh, this the same thing you was
Same
talking
thing.
about
Yeah.
last
You don't
year.
talk about it.
I thought you had 10 problems. You got one
One
problem
problem.
that won't go away.
Yeah.
That's you.
Yeah. That's you.
If you got a lot of problems that you're dealing with, that's life.
Yeah.
But if one problem won't go away, that's because you're not moving.
Mm-hmm. Stuck.
But so yeah, I do see that, and I mean everybody, everything. I'm blessed. I've got licensed psychologists in my family. I became friends with a guy that I'd never thought until I got to know him that he's a licensed psychologist.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got counselors in the family, counselors that are friends. Pastor Knox takes mental health very seriously. So we've got counselors that come to the church.
Mm-hmm.
Working in the industry that I'm in, that's a big thing. Mental health, the things that some of our youth, you call them youth, but our teenage 19, 20, 21-year-old student athletes are going through that you hear
Mm-hmm.
that the stigma is slowly being etched away. It's slowly becoming okay. I'm not gonna say it's in fashion, but
Mm-hmm.
it's slowly becoming okay to talk or speak out.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times, instead of needing privacy, when a group of them are together, they'll say things. They're feeling like they're a little more comfortable than being by themselves. But you find out that people are carrying some
Seriously.
burdens,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't have the skills to do it. They think they have the skills.
Right.
We all think we can figure it out,
Mm-hmm.
but somebody's got to say something to you. I'm not perfect. I've got things that I probably need to talk about a little more and figure out, but I'm not holding anything all the way to the vest anymore.
That's right.
I
Talk
had
to
to learn
somebody.
that. I had to learn that because when you're sitting around and you can't remember what's bothering you, you know you're unhappy, but you don't know why.
Mm-hmm.
That means you need to talk to
Yeah,
somebody.
talk to somebody.
So
It would only
that
be
means you need to
fair.
talk to somebody.
We got a few minutes left, but given what you do with athletics, CIAA,
Yes, sir.
the young athletes that are listening in high school, if they want to, get into college and be involved in athletics, let's say 9th, 10th graders, 8th, I don't know, who stand out in their sports, what advice do you give them if they're really interested in, maybe getting a scholarship or being recognized, for their talent in athletics? What's the best path for them to focus on to be successful in getting the attention that they need? How do they get recruited? How do they get their attention, by coaches and recruiters? Is there a way that, they could focus on to make that journey a little bit better?
Mhm. I would say make sure they remember that it's a wide path.
Mm-hmm.
Talent alone is not going to do it.
Okay.
Being in the right place at the right time isn't always going to do it if you don't have the talent.
Right.
It's everything. You need to make sure that you pay attention and concentrate on not just your talent, not just your skill, not just your academics, but make sure you keep all three up because all three of those are options. All three of those, I mean, it's pure talent. You don't even need good coaching.
Mhm.
Good skill, a good coach will
Some
bring it
coach.
out and enhance your talent, your hidden talent.
Mm-hmm.
Academics is a necessity to at least maintain while you're trying to live out that athletic dream. And if athletics isn't in your future, that academics is not even a fallback. It's just right there when you need it.
That's right.
So the best thing is to do is always don't never let anybody tell you that you don't need to worry about that.
Mm-hmm.
You need to worry about everything as far as preparation. You need to get your mind right, you need to get your body right, and you need to keep your spirit right.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody's offering you something that sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Or it's probably illegal. One of the two. So make sure that you keep a wide angled lens focused on being a whole person, a whole student athlete, and don't be afraid to put in the work. There's going to be flash in the pans, but keep it work. One denial, one, oh, we don't have that spot anymore, keep working. Athletics is competition.
Mhm.
Competition is work. You don't get to sit back and let the competition run up and give itself to you. You got to keep fighting. So keep that wide lens and keep dogging it. Keep pushing.
Mm-hmm.
That's most of my conversations with my daughter. She's a pro athlete now, but since she's been in middle school, keep pushing.
Keep pushing. Keep
It's
pushing.
always a push. Don't wait for anything to come to you. Don't lean over. Don't let anybody grab you to pull you along.
Mhm.
Keep pushing every day.
What do you say, Pastor?
Well, you know, one thing that helped me, and when I was at Fayetteville State, I had Dr. Frank Merchant, who played football under the legendary Jake Gaither at Florida A&M. And he used to tell me a lot of things, and I was like most young people. Like, Dr. Merck, why are you pulling my leg? But when I got to graduate school, and, you know, he called out names and told me things, and I always tell folks, when I got to graduate school, I had to come back home and apologize. Because in my research, the names that he called out were real people.
Mm-hmm.
And my research was on the number of athletes that go from college to the NFL, which is less than 3%. And I started thinking about that. What are you going to do later? I later came back and did research on the longevity of NFL. When you're talking about the average lifespan of an NFL player was 3 years. I'm talking about the superstars and all that. 3 years. What are you going to do when them 3 years are up? You got to go get a real job. Because think about it. You graduated at, let's say you graduated at 24. 3 years later, you're only 27.
Long time.
Long.
You still got a long time to work. So when we talk about that, I go back to not only the perseverance, but the positive attitude. You've got to put yourself around folk that think like you think. Sometimes the folks in your inner circle gonna say, you think you're better than we are. Sometimes the folks in your inner circle are going to alienate you because you got dreams and aspirations. But guess what? You got to go for what's gonna work for you. Forget about what's gonna work for them. Because at the end of the day, and I'll sum it up this way, when they bring you your paycheck and you look at it, the first thing you're going to ask yourself, can I live off of this? If you say you can't live off of it, then that means you made some bad choices. Dr. Calvin Mackey, you hear me talk about him all the time. His brother is the one that's the big star in the movie now. You know, USA Man. Can't think of what the name of the movie
Oh
is.
yeah, I know you're talking about Captain
Flash.
America.
Oh, man.
The Marvel.
Yeah, Marvel movie.
Yeah, Mackie. I know you're talking.
And so I'll never forget Calvin said, to me, we were sitting and we were talking before he did a presentation for me. He said, when I was coming up, I thought I was going to play in the NBA. I separated my shoulder. My mama said, what are you going to do now, boy? He said, NBA was gone because the doctor told me I would never play again. He said, Larry, I was 18 years old. He said, I went to Morehouse. He said, I only went to Morehouse because I went to Georgia Tech, and they laughed at me and told me I couldn't get in. He said, but when I graduated from Morehouse, I had $1.25 in my pocket. He said, you know what I did with that $1.25? I got on the bus and rode the bus to Georgia Tech. He said, in 3.5 years, I had a PhD in mechanical engineering. He said, they were flying me everywhere. He said, one of my friends came and said, Calvin, I got a problem with my heater. He said, he came in, he looked at it. He said, I reached in my tool bag. I got a hammer, and I hit it, and it hung. He said, the guy said, what I owe you? He said, you don't owe me anything. He said, no, I got to give you something. He said, okay, give me $100. He said, give you $100? He said, man, you must be crazy. Give me an itemized bill. He said, okay. He said, the use of the hammer is $5. It's $95 for the expertise. He said, because that's what we pay for. So you've got to put yourself in a position where your expertise will take care of you. And the only way your expertise will take care of you is that God grants you the wisdom and the knowledge to use it.
That's it. Enough said.
Definitely.
That's it right there. And well, we've reached a point to where we're going to bring the show to a close. And it's been really, really, really amazing, the experience level that you have. And I believe some people have picked up some pointers.
I hope so.
And I would like to give you the last thought, if you would just sum up what you think young people should be focusing on in 2025. Young adults, what can we do to weather the storm? Keep our families together, finish school, our careers. I mean, what advice do you give to young people today? The times that we're facing, the movement that's going on, that's not all positive. What's your words?
Remain steadfast. Listen, you always have to listen to God, whether you're a baby, whether you're a young person, whether you're 85 and 100 years old. We all have to listen to God, but you've got to be intentional. I would say be intentional about who you are, who you're with, and what you're doing. If you feel like those around you don't have anything good or anything helpful, find someone else. But also, don't be afraid to not be around anybody. You do good, folks will gravitate to you. Don't look for people. Look for opportunities. Once you look at those opportunities, you listen to that inner voice. You listen to your inner voice, God's inner direction. Look for those opportunities. The people will come along with them. Some of them are going to drop off because you're not doing what they want to do, or you're not doing what they think they can do. But you don't ever go around looking for friends. You look for the opportunity to make a difference in the world. And if that happens to be athletics, so be it. If it happens to be academic, so be it. If it happens to be in the clergy, so be it. But be open, be intentional, and be truthful.
You, Pastor?
I think I've said most of what I need to say, but I'll piggyback off what Eddie just said. Find the folks around you that accentuate what you're about. When you find the folks that accentuate what you're about, get rid of all the rest of the folks. Because all they're going to do is hold you back from achieving what you want to achieve.
And I would say, remember that you are a child of God. You are somebody. Don't let nobody tell you anything less. And you can count on that. You can take that to the bank. And if you apply some of the nuggets that you've heard here tonight, you will be unstoppable. You will have success. You will win the battle, and victory is yours. So, next April 23rd is our next show. Tune in at the 6:30 hour on Wednesday, and we look forward to sharing more nuggets about life and how to overcome challenges and how to win. That's what we do here. Win.
We're going to talk about horseback riding.
Horseback riding.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, I look forward to that one. So enjoy your evening. Thanks for tuning in. Share the show, and let's tune in on April 23rd at 6:30 p.m. Thank you all. Good night.